Your kid's vaccine schedule just got cut in an order signed Monday by Donald Trump with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. standing right next to him. Have a look at your grocery receipt. It's still climbing, but is your paycheck? And a court just told Trump that he can't spend $400 million on a ballroom without Congress. The news is going to present these to you as separate stories, but they're not. They're one story about who's making the decisions and whether anything's left that can or will push back. This is The Quiet Loud. And I'm DeAntony Collins, where we don't just talk about what's happening, we connect the dots behind why it's happening. So let's get into the quiet countdown. On Monday, Donald Trump signed an executive order that cuts the recommended childhood vaccine schedule from 18 down to 11. And standing with him was none other than Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Health and Human Services Secretary. Now, let me be clear about what actually got cut. The order drops the recommendation for RSV, rotavirus, hepatitis A and B, meningococcal disease also, all right? It does something else that the pediatricians are furious about. It takes the combined measles, mumps, and rubella, the MMR shot, and splits them into 3 separate shots for 3 separate visits. Okay. So here's the part that a lot of people don't know or don't think about that combined MMR shot is one of the most studied vaccines in all of human history. They know it's safe. They know it works. I've had MMR. I'm sure all of you have. All right. The only reason to split it apart is to make it simply harder. All right. Make it harder to get. They want to have more visits and more co-pays, more kids falling through the cracks. All right. I know people can't afford to pay any more for their health care right now. All right. That's not medicine. That's the real slowdown that they've been promising their supporters, and it's built right in. All right. So the American Academy and the American Academy of Pediatrics, the doctors who actually treat your children, didn't mince words about this executive order either. Their president, Dr. Andrew Racine, called this order unscientific and dangerous. Unscientific and dangerous. I mean, that's everything that we've been saying about what we hear coming out of Donald Trump's mouth and Robert F. Kennedy's mouth. I mean, one of them asked you to drink bleach. The other one trying to convince you that Tylenol causes autism. Meanwhile, this guy's eating roadkill. These are the pediatricians that are talking about the sitting president's health policy. Okay, they're talking about what Trump is doing and calling it unscientific and dangerous. And this is about the very things that we're putting into our body. And Trump revived an old claim that the vaccines might cause autism. I just told you, just not too long ago, they were saying that it was Tylenol. Now, this claim has been studied to death and debunked over and over and over again. Yet, he's still saying it out loud, unfounded completely. Now, here's where the pattern starts to me, because the order is already blocked in the courts. Within days, a judge stopped it. So that guardrail held right there. But this whole episode is encompassed in this one story. The executive order isn't about science. The scientists knew that. The doctors knew that. It's purely about power. It's about who gets to decide what's safe for your kids. The doctors who studied it for decades, or 2 men who've decided they know better, who are nowhere near the picture of health that we should be aspiring to in this country. All right? So we'll get into that a little bit more. Let's get into number 2, the inflation report has dropped. All right. And the headline said what headlines always say. They talked about the cooling trend that we see now. 3.4% down from 3.5%. And I'll agree, that's progress. And if you only read those headlines, you'd think that the squeeze on us is over, that things are letting up. You know, like a miracle is just going to go away. Isn't that what Trump said? He said that about this. He said that about COVID as well. But here's the thing. Inflation at 3.4% doesn't mean that prices came down. It means that they're just rising slower. Slower isn't cheaper. So whether you're here where I am in Raleigh or in Atlanta where I grew up, that grocery cart that broke the bank last year, still expensive. It's just not getting worse as fast. The prices don't unwind and go backwards. Have you ever seen that before? All right. And your paycheck would know the difference. You're losing just as much money as you were. That hasn't changed. And the jobs report from last week told the other half of that story. The economy lost 23,000 jobs in July. And the unemployment rate technically went down to 4.1%, but you got to read the fine print on that. It went down because people actually stopped looking for work, not because those jobs came back. That's not a real recovery. That's people giving up on the job market. That's people deciding that they can try to do something else, whether that's starting a business for themselves, whether that's going into the gig economy. All right. So you've got prices that won't fall and paychecks that won't rise. That right there is the squeeze, y'all. And it's not letting up, not anytime soon. It's not going away like a miracle, like he says. Now, hold on for a second. We're not going to skip that part because Donald Trump ran for this job on the promise, above all others, to make your groceries cheaper. Remember, he talked about eggs all 2024. The price of eggs was all he talked about. Eggs, eggs, eggs. Knowing full well Donald Trump doesn't know what the cost of a dozen eggs is. He could not be any further from a regular human being. He doesn't know what eggs cost us. But that was practically a campaign slogan of his. Fast forward a year and a half, you got Howard Lutnick last year telling us that, 2025, that's still Biden's economy. You wait until halfway through 2026. And that's when we're going to see the Trump economy kicking in. Well, fast forward a year and a half, here we are. And the number on your kitchen counter, that grocery receipt, is higher than the day he took office. Now, his Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, went out there and said that the record speaks for itself. And I agree with him for once on that. It does. Just not the way he wants you to believe, because a record that lost 23,000 jobs in 1 month while they tried to lie about it and had to go back and revise the 2 months prior to it to show their losses leaves your grocery bill higher than he found it. I would say that record does speak loud. Okay. Wall Street celebrated that bad jobs report too, which further shows the distance between Wall Street and Main Street. The market went up on the news that 23,000 people had lost their jobs. Why do you think that is? Because investors read weakness as a reason that the Fed won't raise these rates. I mean, think about that. The exact number that makes your job search harder is the exact number that made somebody's portfolio go up in Wall Street. So who's this economy being run for? Because when the market cheers the number that hurts people like you and me, and the administration takes a victory lap for prices rising slower, but the market going through the roof, that's not an accident. That's a choice. Two things can be true at the same time, and it seems to be that our pain is their gain. Trump made nearly $2 billion last year. Not many Americans can say the same. Not many at all. All right, story number 3. A federal appeals court just ordered Donald Trump to stop construction on a $400 million ballroom right out there at the White House, where they just demolished the East Wing with not so much as getting any approval at all from Congress or the American people or anything else. And the court's reasoning was devastating to Trump. It said that the president, any president, and I'm quoting them, is a temporary tenant. And a temporary tenant doesn't get to spend $400 million of our money without Congress giving him a yes. Never even submitted it. Now put that number next to the one from the story we just talked about. While you're standing at the grocery checkout line and you're watching that grocery bill go higher and higher with each scan, and while 23,000 people just lost their job, the man in the Oval Office wants to spend $400 million on a party room for the White House that you and I will never see, that we will never get to go into. All right. It was a vanity project, still is. And as soon as he was told no, then we started seeing all these dubious threats and things happening around the White House and around his security that made it now a national security issue. All right. These are our priorities right now. And it's an ugly split screen, y'all. We're talking about our emptying wallets versus his crypto coins and his golden ballroom. We can't fall for this. All right, story number 4. Now, this one broke this week, and it's about what the Trump administration tells you, but what it chooses to hide from us. And we know that they don't tell us the truth. 9 times out of 10, they're lying about something. But we know that when Donald Trump left the NATO summit in Ankara last month, he didn't actually fly out on Air Force One. And we had saw something about that where he was saying it went off to visit the troops and this and that and the other. All right. He boarded it, though, in front of the cameras for show. And then secretly, he switched to a smaller military plane and he was moved through a catering truck. Man, that big, hid in a tiny little catering truck. And the old Air Force One flew off, carrying reporters and staff who had no idea that he was no longer on it. And why'd they do this, though? Okay. Well, what's being reported is that U.S. intelligence had picked up on what they called a credible and specific threat from Iran against Air Force One. Something like a missile plot. Now, That part is serious, okay? I don't like the imagery and the thought of any country being able to reach out and strike an American president, all right? So when there's a real threat to a president, I think as a country, we have to take that seriously, okay? Trump will not be president forever. We will go back to having serious people in the Oval Office. So we have to take that part seriously, all right? Regardless of what you think about Trump, the office of the presidency, which has been badly hurt, will not contain him forever. All right. But anyway, the administration kept this particular secret for weeks. All right. And the public was never told. Heck, the press corps that flies with the president was never even told. And when it finally leaked and Trump was then asked about it, you know what he said? He said, I guess there was a threat. I guess there was a threat. I mean, what are we talking about? You need this ballroom for national security. You want to put drone ports out. You want to turn in some kind of a military complex over there. But now you don't even want to talk about something that might be real, that may have been a real threat, that you want to hide. That makes no sense. Okay? What we want to ask is not whether or not the security move here was right. I mean, yeah, get a president out of harm's way. Okay. So, I mean, I would say that was a right move. I mean, the catering truck, I don't know, is something, but it's why this threat was serious enough to move him in the catering truck. Okay. That was something that the public didn't deserve to know about for weeks. I mean, come on. We should already know this. And then if it hadn't been reported by someone else, we would have never known. Who gets to decide what we're being told? Who gets to decide what's safe? Who gets to decide what's true? And it can't just be Donald Trump. We have to stay focused on these things. All right. Number 5. All right. Let's get into, we talked about some elections before, but let's talk about the primaries of last week. All right. Minnesota, Wisconsin. All right. And there's a name in there you may remember. Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, the 2020 election conspiracy guy, Donald Trump's endorsed man. He ran for governor of Minnesota, and I, for one, am happy to say that he lost. And he lost to a Minnesota state legislator who, again, was not endorsed by Donald Trump. So the MAGA movement got handled a primary defeat in the exact state that it was, trying to claim that victory. Meanwhile, we'll talk about the Senate race there because on the Democratic side, Peggy Flanagan, a progressive, won decisively with nearly 60% of the vote. And she will go on to face off against Michelle Tafoya, a former sports broadcaster, in the November election. But over in Wisconsin, David Crowley won the Democratic governor's primary. And so now we can see that those counterweights are starting to be voted into place. It's happening slow. It's one ballot at a time, but the voters are starting to put their checks into place. We can see it starting to form, and that is scaring the Republicans so bad. All right, we need to brace ourselves. We need to stay vigilant, and most of all, we need to vote. But here's the thing. Primaries can sometimes feel like, boring warm-ups, but they're not. They're where the response to everything else actually starts. All right. Because the courts can block a ballroom and a judge can block a vaccine order, but the permanent counterweight, the one that can't be berated or fired or ignored, is that ballot box. And this week, let's keep watching for what happens. Let's keep watching the Republicans flounder around. Let's keep watching them infight. But we also have to get organized ourselves and get our friends and families and communities organized and ready to start putting people in place who can shift the tide and rebuild what we've lost and give us what we have always wanted but never been able to get. So here's the real takeaway. The decisions are getting made in one place, but the counterweights are still out there in the courts, in the doctor's offices, and at that ballot box. And this week, they all did their job to a degree. All right. The people who want you to feel powerless are counting on you to look at the first half of the screen and give up, but don't. We can't. If this helped you see it clear, please do me a favor, like this video, subscribe, and join our quiet quorum so you don't miss the next one. All right, and hit me up in the comments section. I always respond. Let me know which one of these stories hit you the hardest this week. Was it the vaccine order? Was it the ballroom? The secret flight in the catering cart? I read them all. All right, stay grounded, stay informed, and stay loud quietly. This is The Quiet Loud. Y'all take care.